So in the year 1644, the Jews were expelled from the city Tiberias in north of Israel by the Arabs. And that was 80 years after the Jews rebuilt the city from scratch, from nothing, after it was deserted for 400 years. And now they are expelled from their own city. Can you believe that? Check this out. As you can see in the map, this is the city of Tiberias. It's in the north of Israel, and it's right next to the lake of the Galilee, as we call it, the Kinneret. You can see that it's very close to the city Safed, which was a very important city during the Ottoman period. So the city Tiberias is in north of Israel. It's right next to the lake of Tiberias in the Galilee. So the city is very famous for its Jewish scholars, the people that brought the Hebrew language to life in the Arab period, the people that put the Bible on paper, they created the Wolf system of the Hebrew language, very famous. But the city was destroyed during the war between Salah ad-Din and the Crusaders, and its Jewish population was spread in other cities in the area, in the Galilee, in other towns in the Galilee, right next to them, in Safed, for example, in Banyas, for example. All right. So the city was deserted for 450 years. Nobody lived there, not even Arabs. Nobody lives there. All right. But what happened is that in the 16th century, when the Ottoman took over the land in the year 1517, there were Jews that were interested to renew the Jewish settlement in Tiberias. And with the assistance of Don Yosef Nasi and Dona Grazia Nasi, which they were working with the Ottoman Sultan at that time in the middle of the 16th century, they provide the financial support for the rebuilding of the city of Tiberias. From nothing, it was deserted. They built houses and they plowed a field and they brought Jews to live there, and those Jews were living from agriculture and from industry, of course, also from fishing because it's right next to the lake, and they were supported by Dona Grazia and also Don Yossi. But Dona Grazia died in the year 1569, and afterwards in the year 1579, Don Yosef Nasi also died. So the community was under some pressure, and this is when they start to send messengers to the Jewish communities all over the world, to Turkey, to Europe, and also to Egypt and other places. They even send messengers to Yemen as well, and the Yemenis Jews actually write very clearly about this one messenger that was sent from Tiberias. His name was Rabbi Avraham ben Yitzchak Ashkenazi, and they write quite a lot about him, that he came to Yemen and he was very nice to them and he taught them, and he was also arrested by the rulers over there for all sorts of issues, but he was released afterwards. And he went back to Tiberias with a very generous donation from the Jews of Yemen, and they wrote quite a lot about him. He is the same Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak Ashkenazi that on the same time afterwards, he opened the first press print house in Asia, and it was of course in Hebrew, and it was in Safed, right? So the first press print house in Asia, entire Asia. Talking about the entire Ottoman Empire, not even in China, not even in Japan, not in India, nowhere. In the 16th century, in the land of Israel, he's the one that opened it. And he printed half a dozen of books in Hebrew, of course, all right? So this is the prime time of the city of Tiberias. And at that time, the tradition of the Jews in the world became that they're sending donations on a regular basis to the Jewish community in Israel, and they separate that to four, to Jerusalem, to Hebron, to Safed, and to Tiberias. And there is a different, each city get a separate portion. So of course Jerusalem get more. Of course, Safed got more, and actually Tiberius was the one that got a bit maybe the lowest, the fewest of the donations, because the population was not that high. All right. Now, let me just continue with that. So this is Donna Grazia that supported the Jewish community in Tiberias. The messenger sent from Tiberias all over the Jewish world inspired the creation of a Jewish community of donors to Tiberias in Constantinople in Turkey, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. And in the year 1592, such a group was established, and those people swore that they're gonna merit, and they're gonna keep some of their money in order to send it to Tiberius. Now, on the same time, there was another noble in Turkey. His name was Don Shlomo Ben Yaish, that he also devoted some quite of money for Tiberius, and he also went as far to lease the land of Tiberius from the Sultan. But after he died in the year 1603, the Jews had to depend on those groups, so their situation was actually not so good, and this is actually trigger the initiative of Jews in other places of the world to try to support them as a way to merit themselves. And one example of that is that in Italy, in Venice, in the year 1638, there was a group of Jews led by a Jew called Yitzhak, Principal of Venice, and they actually swore that they are going to arrange money sent to Tiberius on a regular basis, and actually they're going to keep this money, and this money they swear that it will never be used to anything else for any other reason, only to send to Tiberius, and they swore to that. So that was but just a few years after that, in the year 1644, there was a war between the Arabs to the Druze in the Galilee, and the result was that the city was destroyed, and the Jews were kicked out, really kicked out of the city, and they could not live in the city for at least 100 years, until the year 1740, when different rulers came to the land. I'm talking about Dar el-Umar, which revolted against the Ottomans, but he allowed the Jews to resettle Tiberias. And that's the story of Tiberias, that the Jews were kicked out of the city 2 times. First time that they got back to the city, they stayed there, and they didn't let nobody to kick them around anymore. So the city of Tiberias was destroyed in the middle of the 17th century. Now, you need to understand that this is after more than 1,000 years that the Jews lost their sovereignty over their homeland. Yet they kept on struggling to keep on living in their land under the Romans, under the Arabs, and then the Crusaders, and then the Mamluks, and then the Ottoman. So from the Jewish point of view, it's again and again and again and again. But the Jews are all the time hoping and praying and dreaming that very soon the Messiah will come and we're gonna be saved, and God gonna help us to restore our sovereignty, our freedom, a liberal country, and we're gonna be the rulers of our land. So the Jews at that time really believe that at some point of time, what they are experiencing will be over, and they're gonna be free, and they're gonna be sovereign and rulers of their own land, just like other nations around them were free, and they did whatever they want, and they fought each other. Now, another thing you need to understand about that specific time is that the Jews were not allowed to carry a weapon. They couldn't carry a weapon. The Muslim law forbade Jews from carrying a sword or an arch, an arrow, even a spear. They couldn't even ride a horse or a camel. So you need to understand that the Jews during the Ottoman period were very vulnerable, because they were legally legally they could not defend themselves. They could not carry a weapon. It was a capital punishment if you were to carry a weapon while being a Jew in a Muslim land. All right, and if there was a scuffle, for example, let's say that some Muslim attacked you, you didn't have the legal right to defend yourself. And even if someone, for example, like a Muslim murdered a Jew, if there was a trial, a Jew who saw that could not give testimony against the Muslim. You heard that again? Did you hear that? A Jew who witnessed the murder of another Jew by a Muslim could not give testimony against the Muslim in court. His testimony was not valid. You had to bring a Muslim that will give testimony that another Muslim murdered a Jew or a Christian. So understanding that, the Jews at that time understanding that not only that they are legally don't have any rights, they can't, so and if someone, if for example, in what I was telling you, one of the Jews was like, hey, this is not cool, this is not right, we need to fight. Okay, all right, so the Arabs will come and just kill all of the Jews. Okay, so the Jews were, every individual Jew was responsible for the safety and the existence of his entire community. All right, so that's a very very stressful thing. Okay, if you're gonna say something against this Muslim that is attacking you, your entire community might be either expelled, punished, or even murdered. All right, and now this is what we see right now, that even though the Jews didn't do anything bad, and yet still their experience was that they were expelled from the city. So and so you need to understand, I mean, they were hopeless, they were powerless, Now, just a few years after that, you have the Shabbat movement, as I was telling you before in other movies, about how all this pressure of the occupation and Muslim colonialism of the land, how this brought to messianic pressure. All right, so thank you very much for watching the video. Goodbye.